What's up, baseball fans? Welcome to the channel. So today I wanted to kind of break down how a realigned shortened season could look in baseball in 2020. I'm going to go over each division, the West, the Central, and the East, and I'm going to come up with how I think the playoffs could end up shaking up. So before I get into it, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have a division winner for the West, the Central, and the East, and then I'm going to have a 4-team wild card tournament. I believe if they're going to do a wild card, I think they need to have more than just 2 teams, just because there's just so little opportunity to make the playoffs here because there's only 3 divisions total. So I think it would be good to have a 4-team wild card tournament at least. So let's break it down. Let's see who wins the divisions. Let's see who could make a 4-team wild card tournament, and let's see how it all plays out. Let's see who could win this entire thing this year. All right, so here we go. I have the West, the Central, and the East. So let's start with the West. I'm going to go from bottom to top here. So if I were to kind of just real quick map out how I think this is going to play out, I would think at the bottom of the West, you're going to have the Mariners. I would think maybe the Giants. After that, those 2 teams are pretty much going to go right into it. Well, the Mariners are pretty much already in rebuild mode. They're always in rebuild mode. The Giants, I think they're heading that way. After that, I think you're going to have the Rockies. After that, I think the Rangers could be pretty good this year, but I think there's just a lot of competition in that Western division. After that, I could see, I mean, the Angels had a really good offseason, but I think they're going to still not be able to come out on top here. The Angels, I mean, the Padres, you know what? I'm going to switch this. I think the Padres will be better, but I think the Angels will be better than the Padres this year. After that, so we're down to 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 more teams left. We got the Dodgers, we got the Astros, we got the Diamondbacks, and we got the A's. This year, I am really liking the Diamondbacks. So I think the Astros losing Garrett Cole, I think that's going to be really big. I mean, and Verlander's a little iffy right now. I guess reports are saying that he's feeling pretty good. However, I just think with everything that happened last offseason, I mean, if they're going to be playing with no fans, I mean, they might not have that distraction. So, I don't know. We'll go back to that middle part. But I definitely think at the top, you're going to have the Dodgers. I think behind them, you're going to have the A's. Those 2 teams, I think, are the most talented. You know what? The Astros, I think they'll finish 3rd. And then I think the Diamondbacks will come in 4th. Okay. All right. So for the Central, I'll start at the top here. I think the Twins are just the class of that Central division right here out of all these teams. I think behind them, you're going to have the Braves. So don't forget, this would, I mean, reports, I guess, right now are saying that it would be probably like a 100-game season. If I were to look at the stats from last year, so what I did is I took the stats for the 2019 season through 100 games, or I took their records through 100 games. So if you take a look, last year the Twins, they finished 61-39 through 100 games, and if you look at the Braves, they were 59-41. So that's 2 games behind the Twins. I think the Twins got a lot better this season. And the Braves, I mean, they did add Cole Hamels, but I don't think the Braves are going to be better than the Twins this year. I think the Twins, they're just so much more talented than the Braves. The Braves are a good team, don't get me wrong. All right, so far I got Twins, Braves. I really liked what the Reds did this offseason. I really think they're going to be a great team, adding Trevor Bauer. They already have a great bullpen. They signed Moustakas. They got Castellanos. Really good Reds team, I think, this year. Behind them, you know, it's weird with the Cubs, you know, because the Cubs last year, they have a talented team. I like the Cubs, but for some reason they just couldn't really put anything together last year. I think this year they're going to be a little different. I think the Cubs will finish right behind the Reds. Before, I had the Cardinals finishing ahead of the Cubs, but I don't know. The more I sit on the Cubs, I just think with a new manager in David Ross, I think they're going to be able to use some different ways to kind of just get that lineup going, get the pitching staff stabilized. David Ross, I think, is going to be a huge addition for the Cubs. So I like the Cubs here. I like the Cardinals here, right behind the Cubs. Okay, and then you can kind of just fill it in. I mean, the Indians will be good. I think they drop off a little bit. I think they finish definitely right here or around the middle. So then we can just kind of fill in some gaps. I mean, I can go right to the bottom here and put the Tigers. They're in clear rebuild mode. Above them, I think the Royals. I definitely like the White Sox this year. I think they got a lot of energy going. They got some great players this offseason. They had a really good offseason. I think they finish right here. Indians. And then I think the Brewers. I think with the Brewers, they still have some good guys, but I think they lost quite a few guys here in this past offseason. I think they're going to drop off a little bit. I think in a regular 162 game season, I think the Brewers were going to finish somewhere like 80, 82 wins. So I definitely see them taking a step back. So this is how I see the Central playing out. So let's move on to the East. Let's just start off right away. The Yankees will win that East. So if we take a look at the stats from last year, through 100 games, the Yankees had a record of 65-35. They added Garrett Cole. I mean, they're only going to get better. You know, with all this downtime, the Yankees' big problem last year was the injuries. But with an extended offseason, I'm sure their guys are feeling pretty good. Giancarlo Stanton, I'm sure, is going to be feeling a lot better. I'm sure he'll be fresh heading into this season. Aaron Judge, I think he'll be fine. So I definitely see the Yankees. I could see this Yankees team maybe finishing 70 wins through 100 games. I mean, if they were that good with that many injuries last year through 100 games, I could see them just being even better, especially with Garrett Cole right there. I mean, that's incredible. So moving on here, Yankees will definitely come out here. So now the question is, how does this all shape up? So you got some really good teams here. You got the Mets. You have the defending champion Nationals. You got the Rays. You got my Red Sox, who I think can still be competitive. You have the Phillies. I really just like how the Mets did this offseason. I think they added some decent players. They did lose Zach Wheeler, but they have Stroman now for a full year. I like the Mets. I think Yankees and Mets will finish 1-2. The Rays lately have just been good. They did lose Tommy Pham. I think they're gonna hurt there. And they also traded away Emilio Pagan out of that bullpen. He was really good in that bullpen last year. But I think the Rays always just seem to find a way, especially in the last couple years. I mean, a couple years ago, I think they finished with like 90 wins. Last year, I think they were at 96. I mean, the Rays, they're just a well-run organization for as little money as they have. So I think the Rays will end up somewhere right around there. The Nationals, honestly, I'm going to be honest here. I think the Nationals are going to fall off a little bit this year. They're going to have like that World Series hangover, kind of like the Red Sox last year. You know, who knows? I mean, Steven Strasburg just signed a big deal, but he's had a lot of injuries throughout his career. Had a long run last year all the way through the World Series. Who knows how he's going to be? I could see Strasburg definitely taking a step back this year, maybe missing some time. I don't know, though. I mean, an extended offseason might be good. But I'm going to put the Nationals right here. Okay. And then I think the Red Sox will finish here. I think the Phillies will finish right behind them. You know, the Phillies are an interesting one, especially adding a guy like Zach Wheeler. I still think the pitching is far behind. I think they need another guy. I think that bullpen needs some help. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Phillies kind of climb up the ranks here. Who knows? But right now I'm going to put the Phillies right here, and then we can just kind of plug in the gaps here. Blue Jays, I think they're going to be a lot better. Watch out for the Blue Jays in another year or two. Behind them, No, I can see the Marlins avoiding that bottom. And then the Pirates. And then I think the Orioles will just finish at the bottom. Okay, so this is how I have these divisions playing out. Dodgers, Twins, Yankees winning their divisions. So let's go and kind of break down how I think the wild card, if there was going to be a 4-team wild card tournament, let's see how it plays out. Okay, so taking a look, we have the division winners, we have the Dodgers, we have the Twins, we have the Yankees. So who would be the #1 overall seed in this wild card tournament? Who would be the best second place team? Well, if I'm looking at these, I think the A's easily are going to be that #1 seed. The A's, once again, I was picking the A's to win the AL West before all of this stuff started happening. And I was thinking in my head, oh wow, the A's are finally going to avoid that wild card game. But looks like the A's unfortunately could not get lucky in this type of a scenario. I just can't see the A's having a better record than the Dodgers. I mean, even looking again, going back to my notes, the Dodgers last year 65-35 record through 100 games. They got a lot better this offseason, adding Mookie Betts. And the A's last year, they got off to a bit of a slow start, 58-42. I don't see the Dodgers losing that division to the A's. So heading back over here, but I definitely think the A's will be the best second place team. I could see easily the Braves. The Braves have a really good team. I could see the Braves being #2. Okay, coming back over here. You know, I think the Astros. I think the Astros are going to be right there. I mean, yes, they lost Garrett Cole, but if the rest of their guys, if McCullers can come back healthy after Tommy John, if Verlander can stay healthy, I think the Astros will still be a really solid team, especially without all the, if they're not going to have fans, they're not going to be distracted by all the fans. So I like the Astros. And then, you know, I like the Mets. I just like the Mets. I like the Mets. In a regular, for this 2020 season, I was picking the Mets to win the second wild card. So I could absolutely see the Mets getting a 4th seed in this wild card tournament. So if I were to look how this plays out, so A's, Mets, Braves, Astros. All right, so if I'm looking at an A's and Mets matchup, so the A's have a few options. They have Mike Fiers. They got Frankie Montez. They got Sean Manaea, who could pitch in a first-round wild card game. But then you look at the Mets. The Mets, Jacob deGrom, Marcus Stroman. Noah Syndergaard will be out. But the Mets, they have some options in the rotation here. So let's go ahead and look at their rotation. So Jacob deGrom, Stroman, Matz, Porcello. They got Waka. I mean, they won't have Syndergaard. But the Mets have some really decent options. So if I'm looking at a first-round wildcard game, I would imagine they would throw a Jacob deGrom out there. I mean, how could you not? Like, if it's do or die, you got to put your best guy out there for round 1, and then probably your second best guy out there for the if they were to do this kind of a format. I would imagine your second best guy. You want to get to the final first. You want to make it past that first round. So it's do or die. So if I'm looking at like a Jacob deGrom versus like a Mike Fiers, I mean, you gotta go Jacob deGrom. You have to go deGrom, right? So if I were to look at this, so in this scenario, I would have the Mets moving on, because Jacob deGrom, 2-time Cy Young winner. If that's how it ends up playing out, I could easily see deGrom just being hellacious in that game. And then with the Braves Astros, I mean, if you're gonna have Verlander maybe going here, I mean, you would have to pick Verlander. It's an experienced Astros team. I mean, no offense to the Braves, I think they're very talented, very young, but I think in this scenario, I think if you're gonna have a Justin Verlander pitch in this game, I think you would have to pick the Astros to move on. And then so if you have a wild card final, Mets Astros, so this would be really interesting where the Mets, you could have a guy like Marcus Stroman pitch in the wild card final. And then with the Astros, a guy like Lance McCullers could go. In the end, I would think with the Mets, I would think I just like Marcus Stroman. I like Marcus Stroman in a big game. I would like him in that scenario. I think he would be able to hold the Astros at bay. And then the wild card would end up being the Mets. So how crazy would that be? I mean, definitely the Astros could too, but I would really like the Mets in this scenario. I like their lineup. I like their pitching. I think their bullpen, even though they struggled last year, they have an electric bullpen. They could have a really good bullpen this year. I would like the Mets in this scenario. So they would, in my dreamland here, I would have the Mets moving on as the wild card winner and the 4th seed in a mini playoff for the 2020 season. So the next question is, how would these seeds play out? So who would be the number 1 seed? Who would be the 2? Who would be the 3? Well, in my dreamland, I know the Mets would be the 4 seed. So for the number 1 seed, in my opinion, I think the Yankees are just the most talented. They have an amazing lineup, a really solid starting rotation now. They have a great bullpen, probably the best bullpen in baseball. So I would imagine the Yankees being the number 1 seed. The Dodgers, a close second, I think. And then the 3 would be the Twins. So this is interesting because you would have an interleague matchup in each part of the bracket here. Yankees, Mets, Dodgers, Twins. So before, I was actually, to be honest with you, thinking maybe the Dodgers and the Twins could make the World Series. But in this scenario, that would not happen. So when I'm looking at this, well, the Mets are gassed. They've already used Jacob deGrom. They've already used Marcus Stroman in the wild card tournament to get here. I would think maybe one of those, like a Jacob deGrom, could maybe come back for a game 2 if this were to be like a 5-game series. But in the end, I think the Yankees would just be way too talented here. So I would think the Yankees would move on to the World Series here. And in the end, I would think the Dodgers, they have way too much pitching for the Twins. I don't think the Twins, while the Twins have a great offense, they do have some better pitching this year. I think Jose Barrios is going to be really good this year. I think the Dodgers are just going to have too much pitching. And in the end, I mean, this is I think what a lot of people were thinking for the World Series in 2020. And I think even in a shortened season, even with different matchups, in a shortened season, in a shortened playoff, I would still think you're going to see these two teams. These two teams are the absolute most talented teams. That's how I see it playing out. I just don't see how the Dodgers don't make it. They have so much pitching. They just added a Mookie Betts to an already good lineup. The Yankees, I mean, a great lineup. Garrett Cole now with Tanaka. The Yankees were about 1 picture away from getting to the World Series last year. I mean, if they had Garrett Cole, if you took Garrett Cole off that Astros team, the Yankees would be the one in the World Series last year. So I think in the end, Yankees, Dodgers. But to me, in my opinion, I think the Dodgers just have more pitching than the Yankees. I think in a 7-game World Series, you would see the Dodgers come out on top. Great lineup, great pitching. They also have a good bullpen. I like the Dodgers. I like the Dodgers this year. If this is how this whole thing plays out, I see the Dodgers winning the World Series this year. I think they have the most talented overall team. I think they would be able to match up very well with the Yankees, with the Mookie Betts. I mean, come on, Cody Bellinger in there as well. I mean, who knows what Gavin Lux can do this year. But I mean, that rotation, Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, an experienced David Price, who just won a World Series a couple years ago, a good bullpen. You just added Blake Treinen in there as well. If he could have a bounce back year. Joe Kelly's always solid. Kenley Jansen, if he can maybe figure out some stuff. I think the Dodgers are going to be the World Series champions this year, even in a realigned season with 3 divisions, 100 games. The Dodgers will come out on top. So that's what I got. In this format, how do you think it would play out? What other formats do you think the playoffs could have? Would you do a wild card tournament? Would you do just 1 wild card game? How would you do it? Let me know down below in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, like today's video. That's much appreciated. It would help the channel get out there to more baseball fans. That's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you next time.